You are listening to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss our RC adventures.
Welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast, where we discuss the ups and downs of the new RC Flyer. Join your hosts, Michael and Jay, as they take flight at the park. Now on with the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Park Flyer Podcast. I'm Michael, and with me tonight, as always,
is Jay, formerly from the AK.
I like the formerly from the AK. How's it going tonight?
It's going really good, Mike. It's a little weird, but it's going okay.
Why is it weird?
I'm all discombobulated.
Is that our word for the night?
It's the word for discombobulated.
It is now, right?
I am all discombobulated because my body is saying it's below zero, but it's 85 degrees outside.
85 below, right?
No, 85 above.
Are you used to those positive numbers this late in the game here?
It is very, very strange. And I was talking to AK Mike just a little while ago, and they were having a snow day in Alaska. All the kids were out of school. They had a snow alert. The kids were out of school. And for folks who aren't from Alaska, to let you know, if it was 20 below zero, the kids go outside to play, for recess. They still go outside. So it has to be pretty bad that the children, in order to get out of school, the roads have to be really severely bad. They're having their last throes of winter. I'm now down here in Texas, and it's so nice. I've been going into a little bit of shock, or I feel like a little bit of a meth addict or something. I want to go fly so bad, but I'm a little busy, so I can't fly. And so usually whenever I have a bluebird days like I've been having since I've been down here,
right
in Alaska, I would stop whatever I was doing. I need to go shopping for food. Oh, nope, I'm going to go fly. But I can't do that now. Down here, I just feel really bad. And I feel like I should be flying something. Yeah, I'm jonesing really hard about getting out and flying.
So you had a chance to go by and see this field. For those of you who don't know, Jay moved down to a little town in central Texas, to between Austin and San Antonio, called Wimberley, which is where your mom's from, right?
Yep, that's where mom's from.
And he moved down to kind of help out with his mom. And there's a field down there. It's really nice. We found it on Google Earth. We looked at it. It belongs to the Army
Corps of Engineers.
Okay, and they used to fly it, but it's been shut down for a while. And you went out on like a road trip to find
a little
this
expedition.
Place, right?
I had a little bit of free time, and I went out my little expedition to find this field. And I got to about where the field was at, was driving around in circles, and then I called you. And then you're looking up on Google Earth for me, and I was finally able to find the entrance to this place, and it was kind of overgrown. And I walked out in the field. I disturbed like a small herd of deer. It looks great. They still have the remnants of the old field up and the flight line and the safety line and stuff like that up there. And the nice part is you have half the field for flying. You're right on the edge of Canyon Lake. So if you want to fly float planes, whatever, you can fly them. But unfortunately, about a year and a half ago, maybe, they shut the field down. And I was able to track down one of the guys who knew about the field and knew what was going on with the Corps of Engineers. And I tracked this individual down, and I called him up, and I said, "Hey, so what's going on with the field? What? I used to be able to find it on your website, and I used to be able to find hints of it on different things like RC groups and Flying Giants and other little, websites like that." The guy tells me, "Well, we had to shut it down." And I said, "Well, why?" And he said, "Well, we had a problem. The people around the field were complaining. Right on the edge where Canyon Lake ends, I guess, is right on the edge of their property. There's regular homeowners. And I guess people were coming on the weekends during the summers, and they stayed, kind of late one day, and they're up flying gassers. And I guess they disturbed all the residents. And so I guess they got together, made a complaint to Canyon Lake, and they shut the field down. Now that I've kind of looked at the field, I'm going to do what I do best. I'm going to knock on a few doors, talk to the residents to see why they complained. And I'm probably going to get together a little petition and see if I can get the field reopened for electric only. I've done it before in the past. It's worked, so I'll try it down here.
Yeah, I have to say you're good at that opening and closing field. So, well, we wish you the best of luck down there. But the weather has been great here in Phoenix, and it's been great there with in Texas. So, yeah, it's a great time for us to get out in the gliders. And it's April, and here in Phoenix, it's really heating up. So we've got a lot of thermal lift, and just to let you know, I actually a couple weeks ago went out and flew I maidened my glider, my Hotliner.
And this glider has a little bit of history behind it, doesn't it?
It does, yes. I think
not necessarily good history, but it has some history.
It does have a little history about it. I think in one of our podcast episodes not too long ago, we started talking about this glider or something that had to do with this. Where
it might have been the Christmas episode, or it might have been.
I think it was the Valentine episode.
Valentine's okay.
Yeah, where we were talking about how much we spent, and it was like, don't let your wife listen to this podcast. Yeah, this glider was one that Jay had found. They were having a sale. I had been just drooling over this Typhoon. E Typhoon is what it's called. It's my first full carbon fiber glider Hotliner. Jay, being the plane broker that he is, and does a really good job at it. He sends me this thing, says, "Oh my gosh, this thing is on sale," and I jumped all over it. I bought it,
and it was a good deal. It was.
It was a really good deal. It was a really good deal. But then when I got the package in the mail and opened it up, and this has been what, 8-10 months ago, maybe.
Almost a year
ago? Yeah, almost a year.
Almost a year.
So about a year ago, came to the house, opened it up. I did not realize how big of a project this was going to become. I knew what I needed, so I ordered the parts. I figured I could just order some inexpensive servos and a couple of motors. We found the motor that we wanted to put in there, and so I ordered all those parts. It came in. I opened the box, sat down with this thing, and realized it's all carbon fiber. You can't drill or screw a servo into your carbon fiber wing.
No, sir, you cannot.
It's not going to work. So now I have this. I know, right? I have this servo that I have to, and it's a flat wing servo because the wings are uber thin, and I have to figure out how to mount this servo into this wing. Now it has a live hinge. I think we've talked about that before. It is all part of the same, wing structure, and it moves. And so now the threaded rod that they gave me is literally 2 clevises and a threaded rod. So when you thread it together, the 2 clevises, they're Sullivan type clevises. They go together. They make about 2 inches, and it's too long. It's too long for the servo arm to the actual control horn. So I have to figure out how to shorten this so that I get the max throw. Anyway, it started into this project. I probably worked, a month on trying to figure out.
And I have to say, Mike, you got big gorilla hands. This is something for somebody with delicate surgeon hands, not, monkey turning, wrist gorilla putting nuts and bolts in a tank type of thing. That's,
no, I hear you. I'm not a dainty finger guy.
No, you are not. And this thing was tight. It
was. The servo barely fit down in there, the servos that I got, and it just became one of those troublesome things. The more I wrapped my head around what I needed to do, the more I started to feel like, okay, this is a custom job. It's not just they drop a cheap servo in and, hope for the best. As the project wore on, I found from a company called Aloft Hobbies, who are really a bunch of great guys. They sell a mount that it's a plastic mount that comes with a servo bearing. And the servo actually goes into, the servo head goes into the bearing, and now you have this servo arm that will actually go 90 degrees. It'll lay flat one way, and it'll lay flat the other way. And it's on a pin and a bearing. It is super smooth. A lot of guys are using it in their gliders. I thought, no problem. I'll grab 4 of those for the wing servos.
Right. And it's pretty neat because when I got a chance to see it, like you said, it's a pretty neat thing of engineering. But unfortunately, like you said, you don't have a lot of room in there.
No, it's not. It's very thin. And so I got these in the mail, which I ordered, and they're not, I don't want to say they're super expensive, but they're not cheap. They're not, I mean, you and I are used to buying stuff that's $5-10
Right.
to put in our airplanes. And now I've far surpassed that because these mounts run, I want to say, north of $25 a piece or a pair, I think. So I ordered a couple and then I got them in and I thought, okay, I'm going to set aside a day. We're going to sit down and we're going to put all these in here. As a result, it didn't work like I thought it would. So now I dropped this little mount in there, which by the way is now too big to fit in the hole as well. So it's almost like putting that ship together in a bottle, you know. I have to put these things down in there and get the servo all lined up. Now, you and I have talked in the past about epoxy. I have a reaction to the epoxy thing.
I'm allergic.
Yeah, a little bit of a reaction to the epoxy side. So I have to now figure out how to epoxy, because I can't screw these in. I have to figure out how to epoxy these mounts into the wing. And I have to use epoxy. I can't just use CA or some other kind of glue because the epoxy is what holds the carbon fiber down.
And like I was telling you before, some of the stuff that I read when I was researching this, the guys were quite literally epoxying the servos in. You know, even though you kind of rejected, my suggestion to do that, it actually worked out to be a good thing that you didn't, right? That was the other problem.
Yeah, say that again.
I said that was your other problem later on.
Oh, right.
That had if you glued those suckers in, you would have been crying and cursing my name all in the same thing. I would have gotten an earful.
Yes, because a lot of guys. That is correct. Okay, so I misunderstood what you said. They took the servo, put epoxy on it, and then just dropped the servo right down onto the carbon fiber, so it just stuck. Those guys were using way higher end servos than what I had, and so as a result, they were probably, it was their one-time deal and they've done it before. Right.
But once again, for you, these weren't exactly cheap servos, even though they weren't the highest.
No, they weren't,
end,
but they weren't the $200 servos.
No, they weren't $200, but I mean, they still were pretty pricey servos.
Yeah, they were pricey, pricey servos. I set these mounts down in there, but the problem is now I've got to get the mount straight so that when the servo goes down in there, it lines up my rod, because the rod has to go through this very tiny hole to meet the control horn. And I don't have a whole lot of room in there. And of course I had to get the Dremel tool out and I had to Dremel some of that and get it all lined up. And it's a one-time shot, because once you drop the epoxy down in there, if it's crooked, you're kind of stuck with it. It's not like I can dig out the epoxy from this thin wing, it's carbon fiber and it just absorbs it all. And so it became this real big drama process that, Jay's calling me almost every weekly going, "Hey man, you got that glider up yet?" And I'm telling them over the phone, this is, what I'm dealing with. And it's very difficult to explain. And between photos and FaceTime and Skype and whatever, and holding the thing up to my computer, it was very difficult to get him to understand exactly my dilemma. And so finally one afternoon, gosh, it took me 3 or 4 months to finally figure out the engineering portion of it to where it would actually work. I knew that as time wore on, Jay was coming into town, for the Electric Festival when we had that. And so I wanted to get this thing done. And so I took a weekend and spent a lot of time and energy putting everything together. So I finally got it all together, took it out to Maiden it when you were here.
That's right.
And what happened? The servos weren't working.
Sure. First of all, I have to say, Mike, you did an excellent job, because you added some things to this, and you did some mods to it on top of all of this. The wings you can take the wings apart and you put a mod so that the wings, you can snap them together and all the electrical connections would go together. And that turned out really well. The second thing, folks, which you got to really understand, Mike went ahead and we put in the motor that he wanted into this thing. And then on top of that, once you get the motor in, once again, did we mention that it was tight? Well, you still have to put the batteries in there. And guess what? You have to fit all the rest of the electrical gear into the fuselage. And it's tight. I mean, it's small. I mean, this thing, first of all, it just looks fast. You look at a car, you go, the car just looks fast. Well, this plane, just sitting on the ground.
Yeah, just sitting in the parking lot, it looks fast.
It can go 100 miles an hour without even thinking about it. Right. He had figured out how to get everything in the plane, squeeze it all in. He bundled up all the wiring. He made it look nice and neat and tidy. The plane looked really professional. It was well done. We get out there. My wife's out there on the park, walking the dog. We're all ready to maiden this thing. And we get out and, then things started going terribly wrong. He's over there fiddling with his radio. Things don't look like they're moving the right direction. We're starting to smell that funny smoke or that funny smell from burning electrical equipment. And we pre-tested it the night before to make sure everything was working. Everything the day before had worked. Now we get out in the field and it's like it had never been put together ever. Nothing was fitting together.
Right.
The RC gods were working against us. It got to a point where the servos weren't working. Things weren't working the right way. We were trying to troubleshoot it. It's getting hotter, colder. I mean, it just was not work. Everything was just not going our way. And at that point, it was like, okay, even if we got this together, I don't feel, just you get that in the pit of your stomach, you go, ooh, even if we got this to kind of work, I don't feel confident enough to fly it today. Even as a friend watching, just helping launch the thing, I didn't feel confident that things were going so worse for us, so bad against us. You just know that the Murphy's Law is it's huge. It's just waiting for you to toss it. Oh, please toss that plane. And this plane, since Mike has spent a fortune on it, and it's not just the money, it's the time, it's the man hours that he put into us. And what'd you name this plane? The Crier? What?
The Crier. The Crier.
I think that's the name of the plane. And is that because it goes so fast? No, because if it crashes, we're all going to start crying. Because
that's right. Because it'll so much time and energy.
So much time and energy into that plane. It's just too funny. So unfortunately, folks, the plane did not fly that day. I was jonesing to see this plane fly because once again, I found the plane on sale. Mike jumped on it, bought it. Then I was getting excited as I was helping him get the components for it. And I thought, oh man, I can't wait till we can get this together. And then when I show up for the festival, he's like, ta-da, I got it completed. Let's go fly it. And, I'm getting excited. And we got out there and it just was not going to happen. Basically, you had burned up the flap servos burned up.
Well, yeah, they just stopped working. I'm not really sure what happened to them, but they were working here at the house. Got it out to the field, and I think the elevator servo was the one that wasn't working. One elevator servo and the rudder servo, I think, stopped working at the time.
Yeah, or they were doing some funny things.
Yeah, they weren't reacting the way that they should have. And anything, everybody knows that I can fly an airplane with no rudder, no aileron, no flap. I can't fly an airplane without elevator.
Nope. Or you can fly it once. You can fly it once.
Yes, you can just toss it and see what it does. So anyway, Jay and I just felt like it wasn't the time, and I brought her home and switched out the servos to a different brand and a different type of servo. Put those in there. I got all that working. Put it all back together, and now I got a wing and an aileron servo that are not working.
Right.
So I thought maybe it's a wiring harness, maybe it's something else. I don't know. And everything's separate. I have a separate BEC, a separate ESC. Everything's separated. I'm running it at a 6 volts. Both of these have very high torque and very high voltage, so they could take up to 9 volts, I think, and they're still very, very strong servos because this thing is supposed to do 100 miles an hour or so. But anyway, it wasn't meant to be. I tried to get it where we could maiden it while you were still here, and it just didn't work. So it got put on the back shelf, and luckily I talked to the guys in the warranty departments and finally wound up getting some new servos, got everything put back in, and now all the servos seem to be working correctly. So I'm not sure if it was a bad batch or what have you, but they weren't working before, now the new ones that I got are. So kudos out to those two guys for hooking me up and doing the warranty thing for me. So now it's a couple weeks, I think.
Now I'm a little jealous though.
Jealous of what?
Because I didn't get to see it. I didn't get to see the Maiden.
Yeah, I know. So it was, the weather kind of turned nice, and around the last weekend in March, we had a fly on Tuesday fly, and I took my glider out. Mainly because it was just one of those days that it had rained really hard the night before. that morning we got up, it was a still air. You could just feel the breeze just starting to pick up. Beautiful bluebird skies, not a cloud in the sky. All the guys were jonesing. I thought they were all bringing their gliders out because most of them had mentioned that they were going to, oh, we got to bring this. I think our guy Phil, our buddy Phil, he's got a kunai that's coming and a couple of the other guys. And so I took mine out thinking that, I could possibly maiden it, and had second thoughts. Aren't you
Mr. Maiden?
I actually, believe it or not, I know, right? I believe it or not, I left it in the truck, and I just brought all my other airplanes out. So I was flying all those, and I turned around to Phil and I said, "Where's your kunai?" He's like, "Oh, it's not here this week. I still got a couple things to do on it." And I said, "Well, I thought you were going to bring it today to Maiden." And I said, "I wound up bringing my glider." He's like, "Where is it?" I said, "It's in the truck." So there we start walking to the truck to go get it, So he helps me bring it back to the field, and everybody's all oohing and on about it, and we put it all together. And luckily, my buddy Jim, he's one of the guys that's there. He onced over, looked it all over, gave the thumbs up, good for a maiden. I'll tell you what, I've maidened countless. I've forgotten how many airplanes I've maidened. Both most of mine and other people's. I've gone through, a whole bunch of people's maidens. My heart was pounding. Let me tell you, I
was
okay.
I thought you'd done everything in RC that we couldn't even make your heart pound anymore.
Normally it isn't, but like I said, I made such a big deal about this because I told the guys when I stood up, they're like, "Oh, this is a maiden flight. This is so cool." And I go, "Yeah, but this is a crier." That's when I got the little name, because they're like, "What does that mean, a crier?" I go, "Because there's so much money tied up in this thing. If it hits the ground, there ain't any fixing carbon fiber. When it goes, it goes in a million pieces. It's not like you can just put some glue on it and stick it back together. You just totally destroyed it." So I told him, I was like, "Yeah, the bill on this thing is up to where if it crashes, I'm going to start crying." So they all are kind of making fun of me. "Oh my gosh, Mike's a little nervous about his new crier airplane," and launched it, and that thing took off. I did have a little bit of an issue.
What was that?
I threw the throttle, full throttle, and the motor, I think, okay, because this thing is so small,
right.
the diameter of the fuselage is so tiny, I opted to go with two 1,000 milliamp 4-cell batteries paired together. So It basically makes it what, a 2,000 milliamp 4-cell, right? Which is what they suggest for this motor. But I'm using two batteries with the little wide end to each other. When I launched it, I put the throttle to it. I think I drew a little more amps than I should have, I guess, and the motor stopped. I noticed the prop stopped, and we're talking right after Phil launched it. He let it go. It started going up, and it just went poof, and I saw the prop kind of stop because I have a hard brake on it and a folding prop, and the prop folded back, and I thought, oh no. But let me tell you, Jay, this thing was like butter. I mean, it was gliding so well. I could not believe how slick this thing was. I didn't even lose any altitude or anything. It just went to a glide, and I kind of turned it to the right to kind of get a better visual on the prop, noticed it was stopped, pulled the throttle to idle, moved it up about half, kicked right back on, and off she went. And you can climb this thing out at half throttle. You don't really need full throttle unless you want to go vertical. And I got up 2 or 3 mistakes high, shut the power off, and it just glides beautifully. I was so shocked.
You had no problems, nothing with the flaps or the spoilers being kind of off, or nothing you had to adjust there. So it was
nope. It just now I mechanically adjusted all that to where it was level before there was no. You got to understand, when you got two pieces of carbon fiber together, it's pretty easy to tell when one's up and one's down. So it was all level. Mechanically adjusted everything, then went in digitally in the radio and made everything just perfectly level. I took the spoiler part out and just made them level, so it only had flaps.
Ooh.
It only had flaps. It didn't have spoilers because I have it on a rotary on the side switch on my DX18,
right.
And if I didn't want to accidentally hit it and deploy spoilers, so I took the
Okay,
spoilers out.
I can kind of see why you did that, but I suspect you kind of had some problems a little later because of that.
It didn't want to slow down.
Because it glides so well, you're like probably at the end of the day, at the end of your 5 or 8 minutes, you're like, I should land.
Yeah, well, yes, I have to. Yeah, I don't want to spoil the story, but yeah, that's exactly what happened. But
all right, well, go ahead with your story. I don't want to mess it up.
No. I got up a couple of mistakes high. It was gliding around. I put some some more energy to it and got it kind of coming downhill. I did notice it when I put power to it. It wanted to go straight. I probably have to do a few mixing, so I got my trims. I didn't really even have to trim it all that much. I went ahead and started flying it a little faster and a little more aggressively. It rolls incredibly fast. It climbs incredibly fast. It just makes this wicked sound. I just love the sound. Oh, man, it's not even like that. It's just this whistle. There's a couple of videos out there if you want to go on YouTube and search for the E Typhoon. But when you hear this thing, I heard it on a video, and I thought, there's no way. It sounds wicked.
Yes.
And the guys were like, as a matter of fact, one of the guys in the group was like, who's whistling? And everybody laughed. They're like, that's the airplane. They're like, what causes that whistle? I'm like, the fact
speed, baby, speed.
It's got a really thin carbon fiber wing. That sucker whistles. So I did a couple of low passes right by us. It sounds amazing. And then I thought to myself, okay, maybe a loop, maybe a roll. Did a couple of those. And I thought, okay, now it's time to kind of, bring it in and just call it a nice even. If I get too aggressive with it, I don't want something to happen or something to stop working. So I thought, well, I'll come on in. Now, for those of you that don't know, our park is about 400 by 400 feet, right? 400 by 400 feet. This glider is now doing way faster than the park probably wants it to go. And it's whistling. Now, we fly the wings in there. And the wings do okay because I can slow the wings down.
Right.
And when you pull the power off, those things have enough drag that they'll slow right on down. You can just kind of bring them in.
Who cares if they bounce a couple of times?
Yeah, you don't want to bounce this thing.
No.
This glider was just moving. And Jim, one of the guys that was there, was kind of like, I don't know if you have enough room to get that down in this park, So he walked out there with me and was kind of giving me some pointers on, how to get out, which way to get lined up. And my heart was a pounding because I'm just thinking, man, if something happens, this is where it's going to happen, right here. Because I've seen this happen. I've seen it. Your Blizzard was like that. You got it too slow, snap
Absolutely.
roll.
Yes, it will.
Right into the ground.
That's what happens with
bubbles,
those planes, unfortunately.
I know the bubbles that they flew out here. The little gliders. Those had the same problem. And I thought, okay, I don't want this to happen because I don't want it to just wind up like a lawn dart into the ground.
No.
So I came in, a couple of different times. It took me 3 approaches to finally settle my heart rate down and get, kind of where I could understand how long it was going to glide, how far it had to be above the ground. I decided at that point to go ahead and use the flaps because it does have flaps. It didn't have spoilers, but it had flaps.
Now, Mike, when you were trying to go out and bring it out, so were you trying to do these super long approaches then, to bring it, because that, once again, you can't, not to say this isn't a small glider, but it is wafer thin. And unfortunately, when you get it out so far, it disappears. I mean, did you find that, was that happening to you or?
I only had that happen once. It got behind me. I was flying it around and the speed on it, not that I haven't flown really fast RC airplanes, but I was trying to keep this wings level and not do anything crazy and make any really hard turns to do anything, silly or break something loose. But I got it coming down and I got it a little fast and it kind of went behind me. As I started to turn it, I did see that it disappeared. The profile is so thin that when I rolled into a turn, I could no longer see it. I saw the tail, but the wings, fuselage, disappears. Oof. And luckily, you just hold what you have. If you've had that happen before, you don't panic. You just kind of hold what you have because what I wanted it to do was turn left to come back towards me. A second and a half later, I saw the wing, it came around, the profile was now visible, and I leveled the wings and it went zipping past me, and I realized, okay, that was good. But it wasn't like, it wasn't like it just disappeared and I couldn't find it anymore. I had put an input in, I knew how long to keep the input to get it back around to me, and then I was able to see, a head-on version of it versus a side profile. But I did kind of keep it a little close. I just kept it a little bit higher. We have trees and houses, so I had to kind of go out high and then come down into the park.
Right. And every time you come down, you build up that energy.
Yes. Every time I push the nose over, it just built up energy. So I'm having to figure out how to slow it down and get it down. And I thought to myself, okay, well, now's the time. I'll go ahead and use the flaps. Now on this glider, the flaps are pretty much 90 degrees to the wing.
Wow.
I mean, they droop. They're like barn doors. They come down. And when they come down, the nose wants to pitch way up. I need to mix some elevator in there, but I knew it was going to happen, so I went ahead and pushed forward on the stick, and I got this thing coming down at about a 45-degree angle, really in a nice, gentle profile. Jim was coaching me along. Okay, you're doing good. You're not
right, because flaps. Depending what you're using your flaps for, but in a real airplane, or it's to make the more flaps you add, the steeper your descent will become without building up that airspeed. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah,
okay.
It lowers the nose, so it gives you a steeper descent profile without really picking up any speed. You are correct in that. So I got it down to where it was about knee height above the ground, and as I was leveling it out, it just started getting slower, and started kind of sinking towards the ground. And then right before touchdown, I pulled all the flaps up, and it just plopped right onto the ground because at that point it was too slow. So the guys, standing ovation. Really, they were all standing anyway, but yeah, they were all happy. I got it on the ground, nice landing. Got put in the notes for our little group that we have notes that come out on Tuesday. Tom did a good job with that. So and it was super exciting.
So your heartbeat went under, 200 beats per minute.
It did. Once I got it back on the ground, I was okay. I took a deep breath. Jim patted me on the back. Hey, good job. And then I walked over, picked it up. No damage. It's not even a scratch. It landed in the grass. It did, a great job. And of course, everybody wanted to know when I was going to fly it again. Are you going to fly it again? I go, no. I only brought one set of batteries.
Nope. One flight a day, and it was a good flight. I'm not going to do it again.
Not going to happen, because I know what's going to happen the next time. I'm going to get super aggressive with it, and something stupid's going to happen. So
exactly.
And the weird part about this, Jay, is, and I don't know if you realized that last time, but most airplanes that we have, you and I have, the wings attached via glue, screws. Something attaches this. This glider is held together by nothing more than pressures.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I remember when we were at your house, and I go, well, where's the screw that goes into this? And you're like, where are you going to put a screw in carbon fiber? And I'm like, oh, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah,
that was crazy.
You basically have a wing spar that has a little bit of a dihedral to it. It's all carbon fiber. It's huge. It's thick. It's really thick. And then when you put the wings on, that you kind of have to put some pressure on it to get them to fit into the holes. Once they fit into the holes, that pressure of that carbon fiber spar keeps the wings attached to the airplane. So there's nothing that literally, bolts to it, or they just slide on. Same with the tail. That made me really, really nervous. But when I came down and landed, no, I know, but it's the first time I've seen that. When I came down and I even landed, I picked it back up. It was just exactly like I had put it back together. So it does take a little bit. I had to buy this special tool, believe it or not, to push between the fuselage and the wing. It's like a wedge, a little plastic wedge. And you push it down, and it actually separates the wing until it actually gets past that little pressure point, and then it just slides right off. So once again, the guys at Loft Hobbies, kudos to them. I think it was $3 or $4 that bought this little tool. So,
yay, Mike! I'm so glad that it turned out well for you, because there's so many things that could have went terribly wrong. Not that jinx you now. It's the landings that get you with those aircraft. Like we were talking with my old Blizzard by Multiplex. Great plane. It whistled too. Fantastic glider. The first couple times I flew it, had a great flight. I tried to get it to go a little slower to, land in my field. I got it too slow. Next thing I know, the plane did, like a half a barrel roll, smacko into the ground. And I was like, what happened? And I think the analogy I gave you was it looked like God was playing football with my glider and then spiked the ball at the touchdown.
That's right.
Because I had this beautiful
Score.
approach, and just those long, thin wings, when they break, it's a violent break, and the plane will roll over onto its back and just go right into the ground. And it happens fast.
I have to admit that I did take this thing up, and of course I'm familiar with all those characteristics, and so I took it up a couple mistakes and put the flaps out, got it really, really slow. It did not exhibit any unfriendly characteristics.
Okay.
I was thinking that too, but I think the way the wings are built, because they have a little bit more, curvature at the wingtip, they don't just come to a stop out there. I think it's a little more friendly for that.
Oh, good.
But it like I said, it's a beautiful glider. I mean, I had just probably about a 5 mile an hour wind, and that thing just was wanting to hang up there all day long. I mean, I probably could have flown for 30 or 40 minutes just on the glide. It only loses very little altitude. You have to understand, I'm comparing this to my Phoenix 2000, which weighs about the same, because this is a heavy glider. Everybody was really shocked at how heavy it was. I think all up weight on this thing is 8 pounds, maybe. That's probably a little too much. But what did I tell you it was? It was.
I don't remember. Unfortunately, I don't remember. I have that old man's disease.
It is pretty heavy, though. I mean, everybody that lifted it up was like, "Wow, this thing is heavy." And it's carbon fiber, and carbon fiber does have a little weight to it when you start stacking it up like that. So, even being heavy, familiar with my 2-meter glider. My 2-meter glider has a tendency to have a really big sink rate. This thing didn't have a sink rate at all, hardly.
Right.
So it was a great flight. I'm really glad I did it. I'm going to have to break it out. Of course, I've been busy for the last couple weeks and haven't had a chance to go out.
Well, hopefully next time you'll put the spoilers back in, and I think you'll find that probably to get down, like you said, you're probably going to have to keep it up at that altitude. You're probably going to put the flaps out, make a steep descent, get it down at that landing profile once you get over your park field. And then, like I said, flip it over to spoilers. And when those spoilers come out, it's you can put it right at your feet. It's just amazing. And it's not like a lot of spoilers. I mean, you just need like 30 seconds of an inch, and that's all you need. And it'll just kill all the lift on the wing. Yeah,
they were actually there. Like I said, I used my sub trim to actually take it out before the maiden flight, because I just got nervous about hitting that rotor switch on the side.
No, that's like you said. The nice part is with these planes, and that you had a receiver that had, you were able to separate all your components. You can turn that stuff on and off, and you have the ability to do that. So that was great.
I forgot to tell you, I have a mix in there. I call it my agility mode, basically. But I was able to mix in the aileron flaps. So now the outside aileron and inside, like let's see, left. If you're looking behind the airplane, no, it's opposite. So what you're doing is I've got the outside aileron outside, and then the inside opposite flap, I think, move opposite.
Oh, so you're just extending the aileron out, basically.
Yeah, but it doesn't move at the same rate. It kind of, I don't know if it should move at the same rate, but anyway, I'm experimenting with it. But I tried it because I read a little bit about it, and now the flaps and ailerons move together. I know that I have something on my big glider, the 2-meter glider, that does something similar to that. But this was really meant to get me a faster roll rate, because now I'm going from an outside aileron to a full span aileron. You get a much faster roll rate.
Right.
I did experiment with that. It didn't feel, I wasn't quite as comfortable with it, so I turned that back off. But it seems that once I get it fixed up in there.
So you weren't gonna do a setup just like you had on your on the Phoenix 2000, where you had everything on the throttle stick. You know what I mean? Like, because like you set up on mine, because it took a little while for me to get used to it. But I like that flap where I can have flaps to no flaps to spoilers. by just moving the aileron. I mean, by moving the throttle stick, and it works really well for controlling where I'm going to put that glider.
Right. And so you're talking about a full house glider, which is the way we set up our Phoenix 2000. So we have crow, we have spoilers, flaps.
We got it all.
You can move, every control surface moves for something. We have a camber change for speed mode, and it's got like 5 modes on it.
Right.
Now, I will tell you that for a Hotliner, the problem with that is you don't need all of that. Yeah, it's really meant for speed, and it only has flap channels, aileron channels, rudder and aileron, or elevator and rudder. But the motor is really what keeps that thing moving. So I left it just like a normal airplane, and then did some mixing as opposed to putting in a glider setup. I left it more.
Oh, I got you.
Airplane. Mainly because I need the throttle for that thing, and the one I had to kind of move the throttle off to something else on the Phoenix. So I know most guys have this throttle on a switch. They just throw the switch and get full throttle, and they get up to altitude and turn it off. So it's either
I don't think I'd like that.
I'm not really familiar enough where I like that.
Yeah, I thought you were going to put it on your slider on the right-hand sides that you have. That's what I thought you were going to do.
Okay, so yes and no. If the way I have mine set up for a full house, those sliders on the left and the right side actually change camber for the different modes. So if I was to reassign those to a throttle position, I lose my camber change for the glide.
Well, once again, you don't really need it for to change the camber.
That's true, and eventually I may go back to that, but right now I just wanted to kind of get it in the air, and I just kind of stuck with what I knew. So
this plane is all about sexy speed, brother.
Oh yeah.
That's
and
all
I really
about.
Don't need all that other stuff. So if
it ain't whistling, you're not bothered by that at all. It has to be whistling at you. Zoom.
Yes,
that's what you want to hear.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So
I love that whistle.
Maybe, unfortunately my summer's kind of stacking up. I've got some vacation and some family stuff that, is going on, and some training at work, but, I'll get it back out. The summer comes in, gets really hot. We got a lot of thermal uplifting over here. I know, that I told you that I went out and maidened it, and then you were all excited about gliders. You've been talking about gliders for 2 weeks, but
yeah, I have. I can't help it.
Yeah.
I can't help
it. But it was fun. It was really exciting. I'll post a picture of it. I think the guys took photos of Phil launching it, or at least taking a look at it. So I'll post a photo on one of our website there, and yeah, we can count that as a successful maiden. I'm really sorry you weren't here to see it. Because I have a tendency to do that, right? I get a new airplane, and then I kind of wait around and hem around putting it together till you're like on your way out, and then I'll wrap up and finish it, and then go, hey, let's go maiden it. So, which brings me to another
good segue.
Yeah, it brings me to the second part, the last part of our podcast here, because I got a new airplane.
Go on, you did?
Yeah.
I thought you didn't have enough room. I thought you were out of room for airplanes. I didn't think you could buy any more.
You know what the problem was? Is that we went to the Arizona Electric Festival.
Oh, that's right. You made some room.
I made some room because I crashed my airplane. And yes, now I have an empty spot on my airplane holder. No, as a matter of fact, I think it was the day I made in that airplane, or I knew it was coming in. But for those of you that don't know, back in March, I think the 27, 28, something around in there, sometime the last weekend in March, guys over at Motion RC released the A10 for a pre-release. And, my birthday's in May, so happy birthday to me. I waited about 2.5 seconds after they released the pre-release
that long.
Came out on the website.
Wow. Yeah. You must be getting older.
I know. My reflexes were not as good as probably some of these younger guys, but I pulled the trigger. So I will tell you that talking to the guys there at the Electric Festival, Tony had just convinced me. We spent pretty good time with him, the day that we spent with him. And
I love that. He convinced you, like he spoke to you like at length. You really should get this plane, Mike, because of X, Y, and Z. I don't think it quite went that way. I think I remember a little differently.
No, he just looked at it and said, "Hey, this is our new A10. What do you think?" And that was pretty much it.
Drool. That's what I think. Hey, well, gee, you should get that looked at, buddy. That doesn't look right.
What's wrong with his face?
You need a cup or what? You want a napkin? Oh, man.
Tell that guy to stop following me around.
Come on.
We got to interview.
You're not talking to your wife here. Come on.
I know, right?
He convinced me.
We got to interview Tony. He did spend some time with us there. If you haven't,
he was a great guy.
Go back to our day one of our Arizona Electric Festival podcast. But he did give us a lot of good information about the A10, and he went out and flew it a couple times, and I was pretty excited. And he did say it was coming out sometime in March. Towards the end of March, and so went ahead and ordered it. Now, I will tell you that it's on the water or whatever, so I still have a couple of weeks before it comes in, because it doesn't come in until the end of May, I think. So, but I did order it, and now I just have to sit around and watch videos of it until it gets here. So,
okay, so are you gonna fully assemble this in the house, or where are you gonna do it? Are you gonna move out the whole stuff in the living room? Because this plane, it's a little meaty. It's it's a little big.
I bought a warehouse.
Did you?
Yeah, I just bought a warehouse for all those planes. So no, it's kind of nice. If you haven't seen the videos, you should take a look. But it does have detachable wings. They're held on by 2 screws. It is wired where it's like my glider now. It just has a single attachment point between the wing and the fuselage. So you just plug it in and it's good to go. So I'm not too worried about the size of it, because I got a pickup truck anyway, and it'll fit in the back of the truck. Or
right. So are you going to stick with the regular motors, or are you going to upgrade your motors?
Well, I think I fly off of grass in the park. Honestly, between you, me, and all the listeners here, Jay, I think it's a little too big for the park, but that's not going to stop me. I'll probably still fly there. If I can fly this glider around there in the wings, I'm pretty sure I could fly something like that. But yeah, I think I'm going to stick with the 80 millimeters just to start. But they do have a 90 millimeter option, and I might have to.
Well, what I like about their kits, because they're really well thought out, right? So they're made that you could fly it off of, pavement. You could fly it off of grass. They give you two different options.
You can. It's got
this
trailing, yeah.
But what I like about for the motors, it's like normally I want to put some new motors or some more powerful things in it, blah 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 blah, and then you have to do a lot of modifying to get them to fit or to do something. And there's a lot of detail on this particular model. And the nice part is for the nacelles, where the motors, where the EDFs go into the nacelles, they give you the nacelles for a bigger motor, comes with the kit. That's pretty nice.
I believe so. I was a little confused when I ordered it. Not that it mattered, but they did say that you got that option. So whether I have to purchase it or whether it comes in the kit, I'm not really sure. But the option of putting 90 millimeter two,
right? Whether you do or not
one, but two 90 millimeters. So yeah, two 90 millimeters that run off of a 6-cell. I think if you're using 90 millimeters, you're going to probably have to jump up to like a 6,000 milliamp 6-cell.
Right, because I think Tony was flying the 80 millimeter. I think, right?
He was flying the 80 millimeter, and he was flying it off of the Admiral 4,000 milliamp and 5,000 milliamp.
And they were 6-cells, I do believe.
They were 6-cells, 2 of them.
Right. Yeah. Well, it flew.
Which
it flew
totally
pretty nice
brings
with
us
those.
into. Yeah, and it totally brings us into this whole new battery regime, because I think I fought for many, many years to stay just in the 4-cell, 3-cell, 4-cell range, and now I'm past that. Now I'm using basically 12 cells, right? 2 6 cells is 12 cells.
Yes.
So yeah, I've kind of jumped up into that Craziness. It's just
Well,
craziness.
I don't think they're flying it on. I don't think they're putting them together to make 12 cells. I think they're flying each one on 6 cells. So I don't think I don't think that's the way the setup is. I think you're still flying just with 24 volts. That's it.
No, that is correct. You're just flying with 6 cell on one motor, 6 cell on the other.
Yes.
But in the airplane itself are 2 6 cells, which is a total of 12 cells sitting in the body of the airplane.
True. And I think
I wasn't saying I was flying it off a 12S.
Right, and you can fly between a 4,000 milliamp and a 6,000 milliamp.
Yes,
2 of those. Right. So yeah, that's 10,000. 8 to 12 cell cell configurations, and they're not light.
No. Well, I'm super excited. I still have a few more weeks to wait, but I have it up on my computer, so every time I sit down, I look at it and go, hey, that's coming. So now it's just going to be able to convince the wife that you sent it to me. That's really going to be
I deny and disavow anything for this one. You're on your own, buddy. I'm not helping cover for this one.
Well, it's the little boy that cried wolf. There, so many boxes have showed up to my house unannounced. She just automatically thinks if one shows up, it's from you. So
I guess then I did my purpose. I've done my duty.
Yes, I've never argued the other side of that. No. I tried actually once when I got the Pitts S12. I tried to say that I didn't buy that. She didn't believe me. So I'm not sure if she believes that it came from you or me, or I think she's just given up at this point.
I think she's just given up. I think it's just easier.
She really has. Yeah, she really has.
She puts up a weak defense. Oh yeah, I'm spending money. All right, whatever, Mike.
I know, right? That's terrible. So.
What was that story about the Rolex? I think that would be a good story to tell the folks. How'd that story go?
Oh yeah, yeah, that's right. Jay's been kind of settling into his new place and calling me because he's not flying, so he's asking for advice, and he was looking for a trailer, right? I think that you were trying to find a trailer.
Yeah.
And anyway, he was trying to find a trailer, and he had this conversation with his wife. Oh, by the way, I'm gonna look into getting this trailer. And his wife said, yeah, fine. And I told him, I said, well, you got to be real careful with that, because I had that same thing happen to me way back, 20 years ago. I told my wife, hey, you know what? I got a promotion at work. I'm making a lot more money, and I'm going to go buy a Rolex. My wife goes, yeah, not a problem. Sure, go ahead. And I thought, perfect. So believe it or not, I was in Switzerland at the time. I went to the Rolex factory to buy it. And I'm sitting there looking at this watch. First of all, I'm thinking to myself, holy smokes, there's a lot of money for a watch. Beautiful watches, by the way. If you ever want to give me one, I'll take one. But
sponsors?
Exactly, right?
if you're listening to us.
So anyway, I'm looking at this watch, and I'm thinking 2 things are going through my mind. The first one is, oh my gosh, this is just a great watch. And the second thing was, the price of this watch could put diapers on my kid for like 15 years, So it was, and then the third thing that came into my mind was, why did my wife agree to let me come out here and spend this kind of money on a watch? What did I miss, basically? So I opted not to buy it that trip, because I knew I was coming back anyway. So I came back home, and first thing as she said was, where's your watch? And I was like, oh, I didn't get it this trip. She's like, what? Come to find out, she was all dressed up, ready to go up to Antwerp and buy a big old diamond for about the same price. So it's kind of one of those, well, you get your thing and I get my thing. And anyway, it didn't work out to her favor, because I never wound up getting my Rolex. 30 years later, I still don't have one. But
well, that was a great story, because like I said, my wife she just didn't even blink an eye. Oh yeah, go ahead and get the trailer. And I said to Mike, yeah, she just said, go get it. Didn't even well, how much?
I don't know.
Where are you getting it from? And, are you getting a warranty with that? What do you, her usual questions on things like that. She just, oh, okay, whatever. Okay, that sounds good. And I didn't think anything of it until he told me the story. And now I'm like, oh, okay.
What's in her basket? You need to go to the computer and check her cart, because there's something in the cart that's waiting over there. When the trailer shows up, I'm pushing the button on this cart.
Exactly. I have, for our UPS, or not UPS, US, United States Postal Service, I joined up with them, and so anything that comes to the house, I get an alert on my phone that a package is coming. So it's been going off like bing, bing, bing. And I'm like, I didn't order anything. And I'm like, and then I say something to my wife. Did you order some stuff? Oh yeah, I ordered this, that, and the other thing. So I'll have to keep tabs on that. And if it really starts going off, I know that she's, let's see. I
It's
can
going
order.
off every 5 minutes. Ding,
Exactly.
Ding. What
Ding,
the heck,
ding,
man? These
ding.
mailmen are lining up at my door. It's supposed to be something wrong.
Exactly.
That's crazy. Well, we're getting excited about the summer coming around. It's just around the corner. Another 2 weeks or so, we'll be in.
It is, buddy. It is. I like I said, I'm hopefully all my work, I can get it all done and I can finally get out and start flying again. I still, my planes are still in boxes and I haven't really tore them out. And, I'm walking and kicking the boxes all the time and I'm just jonesing to tear them open and get my room kind of set up. But I have more pressing matters to fix things and do some other stuff before I do that. But like I said, to be surrounded by such good weather, I'm really I'm afraid I want to get out and fly because, like I said, I still have Alaska in me and it just says, oh, you better take that good day and go fly. When have you ever seen a day like this? And I got to realize, it happens all the time. So I don't have to be too rushed or worried that I'm missing out on good times.
That's true. That's true. So,
well, you know what, Mike, just because I can't get out, everybody else should get out and go fly. That's all I have to say. That'd make me feel better.
We are getting out and flying. It's getting super hot here, but we fly. We fly earlier in the morning because now the sun, here in Arizona, it starts getting, it stays lighter later, but it also gets lighter earlier.
Right.
So we can go out at 5 o'clock in the morning, really, and it's only like 90 degrees instead of.
I don't know. I feel like I should be sleeping at that time. I don't know.
Trust me, I think if I called you and said, "Hey, let's go flying," even if it was 4:30 in the morning, because you've had me out in Alaska at 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning. So.
Right. Well, once again, I was, a different kind of being spoiled, right? It's daylight all the time up there, so I can fly whenever I want, I guess. No, I just have to get used to Texas, and it seems like it's a little windier here, so I'm going to have to figure when the wind's not blowing as hard to get out to go fly. If that's in the morning, earlier in the morning, or if that's in the afternoon, or how the weather patterns are here. It's just, something new to learn. So
yeah, that's true. You'll get used to it, but I was going to tell you that we're almost halfway through season 2.
What?
Do you believe it? Where has time gone? Yeah, July's right around the corner. We got 2 weeks to May, and then 4 weeks, and we're through halfway through the year.
How do we do that?
How crazy is that?
I don't know. It just seems like it's still wintertime, I guess. It's weird. It is kind of weird.
It is kind of strange, but
whew.
Well, we've had a great season so far. I mean, we've had some good episodes. Today was just kind of a BS session telling about, but if you're interested in some topics, please email us at theparkflyerpodcast.com or put a comment on the website. We'd love to hear from you. And I know we have had a couple of guys that sent some information out. And
yeah, we like answering your questions. I love those kind of questions, or when people write in and ask us something, and then we have to think about it. That's one of the things we really like about this, because we're learning too. There's some things we don't know, and it's nice when we do a little research or think back, when did I do something like that, and we start talking about it. And it's great fun.
It is.
So please write in.
We appreciate it. Yeah, give us a. I saw not too long ago we had some Canadian listeners, got a bunch of hits up there, and a couple of guys from Spain. Yeah, we're getting pretty much worldwide coverage, so that's always good for us. And we're talking about a YouTube channel, I think, for the second half of the season.
Yeah.
So maybe we can do something like that in June. We'll figure it out and try to put something on YouTube, or at least a podcast on YouTube. So.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm interested to hear what happens this summer.
Right.
With
the Army Corps of Engineers. It basically is just going to come down to how much time I have. And like I said, folks, as soon as I can get myself settled from this move and get the house all settled, I'll jump right on that and get that field going one way or another. And then we'll talk about how to get a field started where you are. Because once again, the places like the Army Corps of Engineers, when they have land for something or a project they've been working on, it's meant to be used by all of us, not just people who throw a Frisbee or a baseball, or they just want a place to hang out in the park. if you want to be able to use that land too, all you have to do is write up a proposal and bring it to them. Usually they have the funds and the means to make it happen. So you'll be really surprised at what they're able to do. So hopefully this will work out.
You think I could write him for a dynamite testing area? Would that be okay?
Yeah, well, we might have to work a little bit longer on that. But hey, just we have a new president in town, so maybe he's up for that.
That's true.
So I'll tell him, but you have to put in the proposal to make America great again, and then they'll let that happen. So
I'll put my hat on. Well, Jay, I really appreciate you spending some time with us. It was fun to talk about the glider. I know it's been a long time coming, and I wish you could have been here.
Well, it's still great to talk about it, Mike, and I'm glad. I hope our listeners were able to enjoy your story and are thinking about getting stuff. Oh, one of the things I wanted to say about that, one thing that we didn't do with that particular aircraft that kind of nipped us in the bud with your whole beautiful story, and that is, although we knew about the plane, we really didn't do a lot of research on.
It was an impulse buy.
Now the plane's fabulous, and it's well-made product, and it's quality product.
Yes.
But the assembly of that particular plane, because it was such a notch up above what we're used to, and it had different building techniques, kind of came back and bit us in the butt. Had we both taken some time and read some stuff about it, we would have been a little bit more prepared for what you were getting into to buy that particular plane. So, as always, folks, if you see something, you love it, and you want to buy it, if you have the time, take a step back, do a little bit of research about it to see what you're going to get yourself into. But it can still be an enjoyable project. It's just that, it's luckily that Mike had a little bit of expertise and knowledge to put this thing together and figure it out. Nothing worse than you buy a plane and then you're putting it together and it becomes work. You're not enjoying it. So we don't want that to happen. So hopefully
that
almost
happened with this one. There was one or two times where I was not enjoying what I was doing.
No,
it was short lived. It was one of those things where I was very frustrated once or twice because I'm thinking, man, this is a lot harder than it should be. I kept thinking there was an easy solution. Little research, and I realized what other people were doing, but then I didn't really want to do what they did, so I tried to figure out how to do it, and I finally did. I finally had to do a lot of engineering, but I got it done.
Right, and it feels good once you get the project done and you throw it together.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'm glad
now that I got to fly it, it was even better than expected. So I was pretty excited. So, yeah. Well, that does it for this week. We appreciate you joining us here on the Park Flyer podcast. We are always open to your suggestions, topics, or concerns. Feel free to email us again at parkflyerpodcast.com. And Jay, it's been great having you on the podcast again.
Mike, as always, it's fantastic to be here, buddy.
Yeah, I know. I hear you. Well, let us know what happens, and we'll talk to you, I guess, here a week and a half or so, next week, 2 weeks.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you later.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
You have been listening to the Park Flyer Podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your next visit. Please give our show a star rating and review, and feel free to email us your questions, topics, or suggestions to parkflyerpodcast@gmail.com.